the banquet?
Yeah.
Good. I'd like to introduce your banquet speaker, Les Rowe, who I've known for 40 or 45 years. He's here, his wife Roxanne, and we are very happy to have both his kids here and one grandchild. They just came to hear their dad. So without further ado, Les Rowe.
Thank you everyone, and I want to thank you for attending our 34th convention. 35th year, 34th convention.
Okay.
We missed the 1 year because of COVID.
Okay, you're
So,
right.
thank you all. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you're a first timer, I hope you come back and become what we call the veterans. I won't say old timer, I'm an old timer. But, so, anyway, thank you for coming, and I'll get started. Thank you, Millie. First, I need to thank my wife Roxanne and Millie Cody in helping put this talk together. My wife went through every one of our newsletters, from the first one to the last one, and wrote down cliff notes for me to talk about. Most of my talk will be on the early years, because a lot of you have been here recently, so you know about the later years. 10 years ago, I stood before you because our scheduled speaker couldn't make it. My talk was titled 25 Years Through the Eyes of a Charter Member. And that was something I had to put together pretty quick because our speaker could not make it. Tonight, it's 35 years of NFGS history in 20 minutes or less. Thank you, Lorianne. The NFGS was formed in August of 1990 when an informational meeting was held at the Shriners Club in Marietta. There were over 100 people in attendance. I asked Roxanne to sign us up as I wanted our numbers to be under 100. We are number 92 and 93. This was on August 13th. At the meeting, interim officers were selected until a slate of officers and board members could be properly elected and put into place. Our interim officers were selected were Richard Ziegler, President, Larry Noe, Vice President, Patricia Stacy, Secretary, and David Matheny, Treasurer. Our first newsletter was published in October of 1990. It was all of 4 pages. And this is what it looked like. Just even has your tag on the back from when it was mailed. No name. Our editor was Tom Collins. In the first newsletter, a search for a title name was put to a vote of 22 suggested names. The name Fenton Flyer received the most votes. Mary Jo McCauley from Marietta submitted that name and won a 1-year membership. The mission of the NFGS is the education of Fenton Glass. This starts with our newsletter, continues with our annual convention, which includes seminars, member table displays, club glass sales, and auctions. Through our glass sales and auctions is how we pay the club expenses. We continue to grow thanks to all of our members who buy the club glass, and for the people who attend and purchase stuff from our consignment auctions and our banquet auction like tonight. In January of 1991, Tom Collins resigned as editor due to illness. Millie Cody and David Matheny took over those duties until a full-time editor could be found. Beginning with the March-April issue, Joyce Stein became our editor. In February 16, 1991, the club's first meeting was held at the Women's Club building in Williamstown, West Virginia, with 54 members in attendance. At that time, charter membership ended, and the last charter member was number 292. At this meeting, the officers and board of directors was announced from a total of 168 ballots. The NFGS was incorporated on April 12, 1991 with the state of Ohio. Our first convention was held at the Williamstown Elementary School, August 3rd through 5th, 1991. Our first souvenir was a happiness bird. And those of you who came through and seen the table displays, we had our first 10 years of club souvenirs and special glass. And the happiness bird was out there. The color was called Sage Mist, which was in production for a company called Tiara, which was as close as we could come to an exclusive color, as they did not buy the happiness birds. The birds sold for $18. The first run, the run that we had produced 773 pieces, of which 536 were first quality. The first convention special glass was the 8-inch peacock in the same Sage Mist color. We bought 200 regular vases and 52 whimsies. 52 whimsies. Now half of them were iridized, and the other ones, they were twisted, given a special crimp. I know there was one that had a handle put on to make a basket. They sold well on the vases, so we decided to buy the remainder of the turn of the peacock vases, which was another 248 vases. Those we sold for $27.50. Needless to say, it took a few years to sell all the birds and vases. Our first seminars were done by Carolyn Kreiner. A lot of you know her. She lives up in New York. She wanted to come this year but couldn't make it. Tom Collins did Fenton crested pieces. Joan Chester did cruets by Fenton with their Victorian roots. We had 4 display table displays that year. Joan Chester did cruets, Millie Cody did Fenton leaf plates, Fran Ersham perfume bottles and powder boxes, Bob and Joyce Stein did a cranberry hobnail progressive set, which shows how the pieces are made from start to finish. So you start out with a little gob and then it went to the finished pieces. When they purchased those sets from Fenton, whatever the selling price was for the final piece was what they had to pay for the first consecutive, third, fourth, and fifth. So the progressive sets were quite pricey. And they still come out occasionally for auction. Our first glass forum, or glass ID, which we call it now, had Frank Fenton, Lynn Walker, and Barry Wiggins as our experts. This is where our members can bring glass to have questions answered about who made it, what year, what color it was called, and yes, our experts sometimes got stumped and they did not know the answers. And that still happens to this day because we still continue this. The club did the first Valley Jim Sternwheel cruise on Monday night, and that was our banquet for the convention after dinner. And that's when the 52 Peacock Whimsies were sold. So they were sold on that boat that night, all 52 of them, which says a lot. There's no way we could sell 52 whimsies of anything now. In October 1990, we had 217 members from 24 states and 2 international. At our first annual meeting, we grew to 451 members from 43 states, Canada, and Australia. We had 192 registered people for convention, 137 for the dinner cruise, 107 raffle tickets were sold. We sold 131 happiness birds, 161 peacock vases, plus the 52 whimsies. And on the boat, these were all sold by a lady named Melody Canfield from Michigan. She was our auctioneer. She was a very good friend, and she pushed me a lot to become involved into the club and run for the board. And she was a hard worker and will be missed by all who knew her. In February, Fenton would have a February sale. It was always around President's Day. I'm not sure if they called it a spring sale or President's Day sale or what. But we decided that we would have a board meeting and we would have a consignment auction to piggyback off the people that were coming for that sale. Our first consignment auction was held February 16th, 1991, the same day as our first general meeting at the Women's Club in Williamstown, West Virginia. And it was called the Lau Lane Welker Memorial Auction. Those of you who know Lynn Welker or have heard of him, that was his father. Ross Thomas auctioneered, donated his time, and helped the club for many years. At that auction, we had 213 lots combined or consigned, and it sold for a total of $3,475, with $983 going to the club. The top price being was a red carnival egg with hanging hearts, and it brought $110. That's pretty much year one. So, our first raffle piece came from Frank Fenton. It was a one-of-a-kind, an 898, 11.5-inch tall, big round bulbous vase. It was in custard satin, painted with pink flowers, brown and yellow birds, by Louise Piper in January 1979. Tickets were $10 a piece. 107 tickets were sold, and it was won by David Caraway of Maryland. In 1993, we started having a more conventional banquet, also keeping the Valley Gym cruise moving into Sunday evening, with whimsies being sold at both events. The cost for the boat was $16 with a buffet of cold cuts. The banquet cost was $15 with a choice of beef, chicken, or fish. My, how things have changed. Also, 1993 marked the start of a Fenton Decorator Seminar. In the beginning, it was just Francis Burton. Francis did 8 pieces, which were auctioned along with our whimsies from the convention. A black rose ewer painted with black roses sold for $350. 1994 started the building fund, in which the club asked for donations. Our souvenir was the number 37 mini basket in milk glass with a plum crest and handle, which was a great seller. The club decided that we would continue making those little number 37s, and we had a little plunger put in the mold or to plunge it, so it had a little house on the bottom. And we used that for our building fund. Profits from that went to the building fund. These pieces are still very popular on the secondary market and at auction. During the early years, club members had lots of glass places to shop for Fenton. We had the Washington County Fairgrounds, which were run by Alice and Don Hall. The Williamstown, first it was the elementary school, or the high school, then it moved to the elementary school by Betty Hardiman. Dealers set up at the park in Williamstown. We had the Williamstown Mall, which we still have. And you people that have been around for a while, who can forget the Knights Inn? Our first year coming to the Knights Inn, it took us a little getting used to, because at the Knights Inn, you'd park in front of a room. Well, all these people walking around is looking at everybody's windows in their rooms. And it's like, what's going on here? So it didn't take us long to figure it out. And we had our 2 young kids with us, and they were accepted quite well, because they would take off and where'd they? Oh, they were over here in Bill's room, or they were over here. And the dealers and everybody staying there was well received with my kids. And I appreciate all of that from all of you. At an auction in Marietta in October of '95, an 8.5-inch footed bowl in antique green with a cobalt rim, stem and foot with the hanging heart pattern brought all of $1,200. Those of you who were up at Dexter City on Friday, you couldn't buy much for $1,200. And at that time, that was a substantial amount. October of 1996, the board agreed to give an award for education. It was to be called the EdTel Education Award, to honor the memory of EdTel for his many years of education and enlightening articles in service to the club. He wrote an article called Bird Droppings, and some of it was humorous, some of it was factual, but he was one of the founding members, and to honor him, we still give those awards out today. March of 1997 marked a big change for the club. We rented office space on Putnam Street in Marietta. It was in the lower level. We had 2,200 square feet, plenty of room for the club's needs. Our first administrative secretary was Jackie Flanagan. The club received a lot of donations of furniture, which helped a lot. In January of 1998, the Knights Inn sent a letter to the NFGS asking the club to provide an insurance policy of $1 million to cover any accident that may arise from people selling out of the rooms. This suggested that the club was a sponsor of room sales. The only thing the club does to this day is let people know where sales are located. We are not responsible for sponsoring any sales other than what we have here at the club. So we did not provide that insurance policy. In July of 1999, we purchased a building at 156 Front Street in Marietta, which is where the profits from the number 37 minis and other money that was brought in and or donated to fund the purchase of the building. And that's where we are still located today. We would like to move to a different building to get out of the flood zone. We survived 2 floods that took a lot of damage to our library and to papers that we couldn't get stuff moved out in time. There was a 3rd time that it was supposed to flood. So we rented 2, I believe, 24-foot trucks, and we took everything out from the 1st floor. And there was a group of high school students who come by and helped. The owner of the Boathouse Bar and Grill right there on the river, him and a friend come by and they helped us load the trucks. And then we took it over to that group of buildings where the Fenton gift shop is now, and the guy let us have space there for about 3 weeks to keep our stuff till we was able to get enough people to move it back in. So we got lucked out. There was no water come in that time, but we were ready for it. At the end of 2000, all those Sage Mist happiness birds had finally sold out. So that took almost 10 years to sell all those birds. In the year 2002, brought the introduction of our membership mouse, the club's first mold. It was designed by John Saffel. Bill Fenton passed away in 1992. Bill was always down to earth, offering help and a story or a joke. For many years, he donated a piece of glass out of his collection to our February auction. Our February 15th, 2003 board meeting in Marietta, it was shut down from a large snowstorm. And Marietta's not used to getting that much snow at one time. Even McDonald's was closed. Interstate 77 had a level 3, which meant only emergency vehicles were allowed to be on the road. Finally, around noon on Monday, we were all able to get back onto the road. Also, our NFGS logo, which is the NFGS, but Bill Fenton was doodling on some paper and formed the NFGS letters into the shape of the happiness bird. So that's how we got that, thanks to Bill Fenton. Our first, the first color that we sold our mouse in was cobalt blue, but it was sampled in milk glass. And I'm not sure how many we had in milk glass. And Sharon, are there any of those still left? Okay, so 2005 marked the 100-year anniversary of the Fenton Art Glass Company. It also marked the passing of Frank Fenton. He was a friend to many. His knowledge of glass making and glass history was second to none. A little story about me at that point. Well, before then, I worked my way up through the club to ordering glass for each year. And one day, we stopped and I walked into the gift shop. Roxanne and the kids stayed in the van. And there was Frank. And he said, "Hey Les, how are you?" So we talked for about 3 or 4 minutes. I couldn't get past the fact that he knew my name. So I have no idea what we talked about. And then I went out to the van and I said, "Frank knows who I am." And they laughed. They said, "No, he doesn't." I go, "Yes, he called me by name." Anyway, at that Centennial Festival at Fenton, they had a bunch of tents set up in the parking lot. And I was out there and I got to see as the family drove Frank by in a van. And I could see him smile and he was waving as he went by. And it wasn't long after that that he passed. At the Centennial Auction, which was held at Marietta College, the club was given 50 spots to our members to put in 2 items in the auction, with 20% going to the club and 80% to the person who consigned it. The auction was a big success for Fenton and for our members. Also, in 2005, our first president and founding member, Richard Ziegler, passed away. 2011 was a sad year for Fenton collectors, as the company stopped production in October of that year. It was decided to auction the glass from the museum. Randy Clark was selected to be the auctioneer. And Randy, do you remember how many auctions you had? Six. Okay, and they were very well attended, and if you were there, there was really special pieces that would cost you a lot more today than it did then. 2011 also marked the start of our 50-50 drawing, which has gone from the first year for special causes, food bank, fire department. It even went to 1 year to one of our office managers whose husband was tragically killed. So we helped her that year, but it's always gone to help people. And sometimes the person whose ticket is drawn donates the money back, but that's up to you. There's no pressure to do that. Y'all do what you want to do. A major event in 2012, our own Millie Cody, our education chair, had been searching for Mr. Robert Barber for years. For those who may not know, Robert Barber was a designer, glass artist who worked at Fenton during the mid-70s. He worked with Dave Fetty and Delmer Stowalser, creating what Fenton called the Barber Collection. His work was not well received at the time, but has become much sought after and brings good prices today. Millie found a website he created as a requirement for photography and web design class he was taking at a little local college in California where he was living. She sent him a letter, not an email, and she received a phone call from him in August of 2011. Since we asked him to come here from across the country, we decided to provide his transportation and lodging. To save on the cost for the club, we asked our membership to help underwrite these expenses. So we created the Bring Robert Back Fund. We received enough donations from all of you and all of our members to cover all of his expenses. We had a drawing for a large Rosaline basket for all who donated. Ann Blackmore was the winner of that basket. John and Ann Fenton brought some glass making equipment from their shop in Missouri. And Robert, Dave, and Delmer worked together for the first time in 36 years. They became affectionately known as the Dream Team. There was a demonstration at Gabbert's Collet in Williamstown, and together they made a special piece of glass. John and Ann graciously donated that piece to the club, and it was auctioned at our banquet. And I just happen to have that piece up here. The piece is owned by a couple that are here out in the audience, and I won't tell you what they paid for it, but I want to thank them for letting me borrow it for this talk. We are the longest running renters of the stern wheel boat. For 34 years, we have rented that for all of you to take a cruise down the river, have a meal, and enjoy it. In one trip on the stern wheel, we asked them to go up the Muskingum River. Now, before they can go up the Muskingum, they have to call the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure that the sand that comes out is enough that the stern wheel can go through. So they said yes. So they pulled into this old wooden lock, and they crank the doors shut by hand, and then the water starts to rise. And if you're looking, you see all these little snakes like running into the ties that are holding the walls up, which I thought, that's pretty crazy. So you get up and you go up the river maybe 300 or 400 yards, enough where they can turn the boat back around. So then we go back through the lock and it lowers us down. Well, after we got out, I guess he didn't turn quick enough to the right, but we got stuck on the sand. So luckily there was 3 or 4 employees on the boat, So they had everybody on the boat go to one side of the boat. And then they had the 3 or 4 employees with poles, and they were pushing, and he was revving the motor, pushing, revving the motor. After about 20 minutes, we got off the sand, and we were able to continue our trip. But that was one memory I'll never forget. In the early years also, there was a trend that when you got down here, and you weren't sure what it was going to be. One year, it may be everybody's looking for black rose, or black crest, or the number 37 mini baskets. But for 2 or 3 years, it was the swirl feather pieces, in the green and the cranberry and the blue. Well, a true story, there were 2 women who were very intense on finding these swirl feather pieces. Even if they already had it, they would buy a second or a third one, because they would say, well, this swirls a little bit better than the other one there, and I don't know. But at the Williamstown Park, one of the women saw a piece and was told by the dealer she was holding it for someone else. But that woman convinced her to sell it to her. The woman that bought it then went to her hotel room and changed her clothes, just in case the woman that sold it would say, well, I sold it to a lady that was dressed in this, so that the woman wouldn't recognize it. And that's true. I want to thank all of you people from Facebook that hold their auctions and their sales, the auctioneers, the ones that are here tonight that support the club. The people from Facebook, you know who you are. I'm not going to name all the names because I'm sure I will forget some of you. But they have done a lot for not only themselves, but for all of us. For many years, Roxanne and I would say, who's going to want to buy this stuff when we're ready to sell it? Well, the market right now, if you just watch any of the auctions, the prices have gone high. New stuff, old stuff, rare stuff. But it's the thanks to all of those people who have helped create this. We had some Fenton Glass charter chapters. And we weren't allowed, if we started our own little group up around home, we weren't allowed to use the word national. We were supposed to be called the Fenton Glass Society. Well, this one is the Marietta area. That one is still in existence. And they meet, I believe, once a month. There was the Fenton Glass Society of Maumee, Ohio, Fenton Glass Society of Greater Metropolitan Washington area, the Fenton Glass Society of Central Ohio, and the Fenton Glass Society of Northeast Ohio, which I was part of. The last 4 have since become inactive, but the one here locally is still active. We've had 12 different presidents since the club started. We've had 72 different people who served on the board of directors. We've had 10 different office administrators, which I could not name them all. But 5 of them served less than a year for various reasons. Our longest serving office administrator is here tonight with us, Miss Susie Goodacre. I was elected president, and one of the first challenges of my presidency was the current administrator turning in her resignation. And I'm like, great, now what am I going to do? How am I going to interview people? I live 2 hours away. Luckily, good Lord had something in mind for us, because I got a name passed to me and that name was Susie Goodacre. And she had worked at Fenton, so she had knowledge of Fenton, she had knowledge of accounting, and at that time, she wanted to come back to work. So I needed a secretary, she wanted a job, it was a match made. And she has become a very good friend. Thank you, Susie. Our presidents was Richard Ziegler, he's passed. Tom Smith, he's passed. Richard Statz is passed. Bob Stein was president. Bill McGinnis has passed away. Les Rowe hasn't passed yet. Sharon Fenner, Doug McIntosh, Charlie Lingus, Alan Fenner, Karen Lemon, and our current president, Lorianne Piscarich, who got reelected to be our president for this coming year. Would anybody who has attended all 34 of our conventions, I would like to recognize you if you would please stand up. Please, if you've attended all 34. There's only a few of us that have made it that long. After I go off the board next year, and I have to go off according to the bylaws for the following year, so I can't run for re-election. But after next year, I will have served 27 years on this board. 2028, I want you all to elect me again. Because that will make my 30 years and I'll get my pension. And again, I thank you for hearing me and all your attention, and again, for coming and enjoying the festivities.